Hello and welcome everybody to our Lede New Orleans Q&A, our fellowship Q&A. We appreciate everybody logging in and being here. Tonight, we're going to go ahead and get things kicked off around 7:05 p.m. But while we're waiting for people to sign on, go ahead and jump in the chat box, leave your name and pronouns, where you're signing in from, and something that you're proud of. All right, so we'll give a few minutes for people to log on. I want to go ahead and jump into the chat box, leave your name, your pronouns, where you're signing in from, and something you're proud of. All right, so we'll give a few moments for that, and welcome. Again, if you're just joining us, go ahead and sign into the chat, share your name and pronouns, where you're signing in from, and something that you're proud of. It could be this week, it could be the whole month. I love this GIF. It just makes me so happy. Again, if you're just joining us, we are going to get started at 7:05 p.m., but go ahead and jump in the chat box, write your name and pronouns, where you're signing in from, something that you're proud of. Share with the group. Get some community building going on here. All right, again, if you're just joining us, and apologies to those who are listening to the recording playback of this, but we are jumping in the chat box, we're leaving our name and pronouns, just sharing a bit about us for our community here, where you're signing in from, and something you're proud of. Go ahead and continue doing that if you just jumped in, but we're gonna go ahead and move forward with tonight's presentation so we can make the best use of everybody's time. So again, welcome. Thank you for being here. I wanted to go over tonight's agenda just so everybody's aware of what we're going to be doing here. So we just did introductions in our agenda. We're going to launch into an introduction of Lede New Orleans. Then we're going to give a fellowship overview. We're going to go into details about the application process for the fellowship, as well as resources that are available to you in that process. We'll have a Q&A period for about 15 minutes, and we should be out of here in about 40. So that's the overview of tonight's agenda. Before we get started, I do want to go over our values here at Lede New Orleans. We are rooted in these values, and we try to bring them into all of our spaces, including virtual. The first is to ask why, which basically means to challenge your assumptions and really push your worldview whenever you're interacting with others. To be present and engaged in the space that you're in. In our virtual communities, we do like to practice consent, which basically means we might be sharing stories here or asking questions that we want to keep in this space. So unless you have a story or unless you have permission to share a story, just leave it here. And of course, be well. You don't need to ask permission to go to the bathroom or anything like that, or grab something to eat. Take care of yourself. And we'll trust that you're tuning in. And of course, just regular good housekeeping for virtual. Stay on mute unless you are the one speaking, and just be aware of what's going on in the background with your video. All right. So let's get started with introductions. My name is Jennifer Larino. I am co-founder of Lede New Orleans and a journalist here in New Orleans. I have been working and doing local reporting in New Orleans for about 10 years. I started doing journalism in high school, actually, and then went on to study at J School at the University of Central Florida. J school means journalism school, at the University of Central Florida in Orlando, Florida. I actually got my first job here in New Orleans at a paper called New Orleans City Business. It was a business reporting position for a weekly paper, and I worked there at age 24. I became managing editor of that paper and got some awesome experience there before heading over to the Times-Picayune to do business reporting for that paper. I was at the Times-Picayune up until 2019 when the paper was bought out. And in that process, I saw a lot of our Black and brown voices in the city leaving, moving elsewhere. And I thought about how terrible that would be for our city, and the lack of voices in general in our newsroom that are native to New Orleans, and voices of color. And that's kind of where the idea for Lede New Orleans came about. Founded Lede New Orleans in 2019 with my co-founder, Ijaz Mason. Ijaz is not here tonight, but he is oversees our multimedia instruction. His background is in film and film teaching, so he was a teacher. And we run Lede New Orleans together. So what is Lede New Orleans? Lede New Orleans is a nonprofit organization that brings young adults, journalists, and creatives together to share knowledge and create community-driven media. So that's what we do in a nutshell, and you can see little pictures here of our most recent fellowship and fellows doing work as part of our program. So let's dig in a little bit more into who we are as Lede New Orleans. Again, we bring young adults, journalists, and creatives together to create equitable, community-driven media. What do we mean when we say equitable media? Well, we mean that when we're thinking about the stories that we tell and the research we're doing and the people we're talking to, we're being intentional in ensuring that we're thinking about not just how the stories are told and who we're telling them about, but also who is doing the storytelling, right? So that's a big portion of what our program is about, bringing Black, Brown, Latinx, LGBTQ plus voices, Asian voices, underrepresented voices into the fold. Again, we support through this fellowship program, specifically Black, Brown, Latinx, Asian, and LGBTQ plus journalists, emerging journalists, ages 18 to 25. And a big part of our programming is that we learn by doing. So it's not just sitting in a classroom, right? We're going out there and we're doing reporting work after we learn about fundamentals and basics. So one thing that stands out about our program, I'd say. We do and pursue our mission of equity in two big ways. So we have our media education arm, which is workshops, mostly virtual right now, but journalism workshops and multimedia workshops that are open to the public, where we teach you basic skills, and those are an hour to 2 hours, and you can plug into those. And then we also have our fellowship program, which is what you all are here to learn more about. This is a 14-week fellowship, community reporting fellowship that again serves Black, Brown, Latinx, Asian, LGBTQ plus youth in doing and learning first the basics of journalism and multimedia, and then turning around and applying those skills to community reporting projects right here in New Orleans. So not only are you learning the skills, you're applying them, which is pretty important for us. To kind of zoom out and talk about why we're doing this. This is pretty important to us because this work is foundational, we think, to where we're at in our country's history right now. So our why we're doing this is that we are working to strengthen the voice of a true representative democracy. And that's a big idea, right? But really that work happens in our communities. America was founded on this notion of a representative democracy, right? Where everyone's voice is heard. that hasn't really been the case, as we know, for many, many hundreds of years. Specifically, our Black and Brown communities have been systematically excluded. Our Asian communities, our Latinx communities, our LGBTQ plus communities, systematically excluded from not just government, but also media. And we are working to change that because media is integral to how we live our lives and our democracy. Why is that? People need to get information and talk about ideas in order to truly engage in a democracy, right? So if your community is systematically excluded from getting information, from being involved in the storytelling process, from all these spaces where ideas are being generated, because we get most of our information from media, right? Your voice is being stripped, basically. So how do we solve that? How do we change that? And that's at the core of why we get up in the morning and we do this work. At the end of the day, people should be equipped with the skills they need to drive change in their communities. And we believe journalism is a really, really crucial way to do that. And especially in a multimedia way, in a way that speaks to people in the 21st century. And we've seen in the past year that, this has been highlighted again and again in 2020 with coronavirus, with the racial injustice that we saw over the summer and have seen for decades before that, centuries before that. And I turn back to this James Baldwin quote to kind of guide our thinking. Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. And I believe that's one thing that journalism and civic engagement can do, and help bring you in. You're facing these things that need to be changed, and we'd love to help you do that and get your help in doing that, more importantly. So let's talk about the Reporting Fellowship. The Reporting Fellowship is a 14-week experience. Our spring 2021 fellowship work will include a group reporting project that focuses on an issue relevant to an underrepresented community in New Orleans. You will also be working on a video profile series that we call Lede Voices. This series highlights creators and change makers of color in our city here in New Orleans, specifically young creators and change makers, so under age 40. This is one of those sets for Lede Voices down here, this picture with Lenice, one of our fall 2020 fellows, and one of our coaches, Kathleen Flynn. So that's a lot of the kind of in the field multimedia work that you'll be doing. And then we also meet weekly as a team to talk about the projects that we're working on and learn new concepts. So it's kind of learning while doing, right? Building the house while you're living in it, building the plane while you're flying it, however you prefer to look at it. But just to give you a sense for who you're following the footsteps of, this is our fall 2020 fellow cohort. A great group. We learned a lot working with them through, social distancing and virtual and working in person as well. So just an idea of who has come before you. So what do you get out of the fellowship experience? Number one thing is hands-on training, right? So again, this is not just a classroom experience. This is getting out there, getting your hands on equipment, actually doing interviews, learning about your community, interviewing experts, those sorts of things. A key kind of kickoff for our program is a day-long journalism camp where we bring everyone in, hopefully in person. We were able to do it in person last fall to introduce you to journalism concepts, get your hands on equipment again, and really kind of just get into the flow with the fellowship. In addition, you also get in the field reporting experience, which is crucial, I know, for anybody who's studying journalism in college, but also just to learn this work, because journalism is a learn by doing craft. You could study all you want, but you gotta get out there and talk to people in order to learn. You will also get experience shooting and editing video, which is a really crucial part of our program. That's where Lede Voices comes in. So you not only get the experience of recording video, but also editing and how do you build a story visually. Last but not least, in addition to mentorship and coaching, this is actually Ijaz Mason, my co-founder, but also a coach. We both coach in addition to helping run the organization. You get that mentorship and coaching. We have coaches who are professional journalists who work with our fellows to do work, and you basically work alongside each other to interview and pursue projects. And now, last but not least, you get financial support as well. We do give a $300 stipend plus transportation assistance. So depending on what your need is for transportation, we can help out there as well. To give you a sense for what this all looks like, this is a little snapshot of a Lead Voices interview. This is with Compton 3, an art toy maker locally. You could actually check out his profile on our Instagram page or on our YouTube. Just look for Lede New Orleans. A really fun interview, but these over here are two of our fellows, Erin and Jack from the fall. This is Ijaz Mason, a co-founder of Lede New Orleans. And basically we set up for these interviews. Y'all will be putting together all of this equipment, and fellows then record the interview. You participate in asking questions, and it's a really great multimedia journalism experience. So let's talk about key dates moving forward. The biggest is Sunday, January 31st at 11:59 p.m. I'm including the time in there because past that, you missed the deadline, and deadlines are key in journalism. So this is when applications are due. All right, so again, Sunday, January 31st, 2021. Just before midnight, applications will be due. We'll be closing them down. The process moving forward from there, February 8th through 19th, we'll be interviewing candidates for the fellowship. So once we review all the applications, we will notify everyone either by email or phone for interview, and then we'll schedule your interviews. By February 26th, so the end of February, all applicants will be notified whether you were selected for the fellowship or not. And then on March 20th, the fellowship starts. In between February 26th and March 20th, there will be paperwork and kind of onboarding to get you all set up before we kick off the actual work. So those are a few key dates for those who are curious. And if you have not gotten a chance to take a look at the application yet, I did want to cover what it asks just to give you an idea. The application is divided up into a few sections. There's one on identity, because that is crucial to our work with Lede New Orleans and who we're bringing onto our team. We do ask identity questions. We also ask about, any previous experience you've had in journalism. Again, you do not have to have previous experience to join this fellowship. In fact, I'd say the majority of our fellows do not have journalism experience. They're coming at this from different places. So don't see those questions as us trying to weed out anybody who doesn't have experience. We're just trying to get a feel for where you're coming from. We also ask about any transportation or technology hurdles you might anticipate running into. If you think you might not have consistent access to a laptop or something like that, these are to help us plan. We have resources to help you. So we just want to know, what might you need help with. We also have a few short response questions. This says 2, I believe it might be 3. I am not sure, but there are a few short response questions at the end of the application. And then do not forget to submit a 1-minute selfie video. You don't have to get too fancy with it. It could be just a selfie video with your phone, but we just like it because it helps you really come across in a way that just doesn't on paper. I do have a link here because we have a preview of the app. Because the application is on Google Forms, you cannot flip through it without starting it. And you also cannot save, which is a problem for those of you who want to draft out your essay questions ahead of time. So I can drop this in the chat as well, but we have an application preview so that in Google Docs that you can access and look at that says all the questions that are on the application, so you can prepare your answers ahead of time, which I highly recommend you do. You can write out your essay questions and short response questions as well. So let me drop this in the chat so that you have that now. I'll also follow up in an email for those of you who are present today, so that you have that on hand. So definitely recommend taking a look at that. Okay. With your application, we are here to help, okay? We want to help you. So here's a few resources for you as you're completing your application. And if you decide to move forward, we do offer editing help. So if you need or want somebody to look over your short response answers and give you feedback, or just do a grammatical spelling check, we do offer that. We just ask that you submit your answers by Wednesday, January 27th, so that we can give people time to take a look at them and give them back to you before the final deadline of the application. We also have an application hotline, which is basically me, a direct line to me. You can talk one-on-one with me, ask me questions. Go ahead and let me go and drop this into the chat as well. Again, I'll follow up with an email on with all this stuff. Oh, this is the wrong Calendly. All right, never mind on that. You can email me at jenlarino@nola.com if you have a question or something specific you want to talk about. And the last thing is you can join our email list, and I will drop that in the chat as well. This will give you information on everything that's going on with Lede New Orleans straight to your inbox every day or every week, and is a useful tool. All right, so now that you know the resources, you know the background on us, I did want to open it up for Q&A for anybody who is interested in asking questions. Now is your time, so make sure that you're unmuted. And if you feel more comfortable dropping your question in the chat, go ahead and do that. You can also follow up and submit your questions to me, Jen Larino, at jen@ledenola.org.